You become a confident communicator by doing two things. And in this video, I'm going to show you those two things. But in order to maximize thing number two, we first have to do thing number one. And thing number one is exposure therapy. If I get you to speak in front of a mirror, you're going to speak absolutely fine. But if I put 3,000 people around that mirror, you're then going to start to sweat. You're going to start to panic and your voice is going to start to shake. The act of speaking has not changed, but the environment around you has changed. And that's what we need to expose. You are going to slowly expose your fear so the uncomfortable starts to be the comfortable. And there's two ways you can do this. One way, you are going to join a community. A community that I recommend is Toastmasters. By joining this community, you will slowly start to do speeches that are longer and longer and longer in front of people that you have never met before. Your first meeting, you will have to introduce yourself. That is 25 seconds, 30 seconds of you speaking, stood up in front of a crowd. Could be 20 people, could be 30 people. You have to state your name, you have to say where you're from, and you have to say an interesting fact about yourself, a bit of improvisation. And then at the end of the meeting, you also have to comment on what you thought of the whole procedure, what you thought of the meeting. Did you enjoy it? What did you think they could improve upon? So in that first meeting that you go to, even when you're not a member, when you just go to visit, you have now spoke for a minute, 2 minutes in total in front of randomers. And then the next meeting, you'll have to introduce yourself, and then you also will have to do a table topics speech. These are 1 to 2 minutes. These are spontaneous speech. You will get given a question and then you will have to speak. So each week you are slowly doing more and more and more. You're exposing yourself to your fear, but slowly building up the volume. And then the week after that, or the meeting after that, you'll have to do an icebreaker speech, which is a planned speech, and it is 4 to 6 minutes. You get up in front of everyone and you have to do a 4 to 6 minute speech about you. And that is one way that you can expose yourself to speaking. Another way is by filming yourself. And a way we can work up to filming is just doing voice notes. Get your phone out, get some headphones, boom, go on a walk, voice note, answer a question, 3 minutes. That's exposing yourself to speak on something that is sometimes uncomfortable. Speaking to a phone. So you can voice note, and then when you're comfortable, you can then film yourself. And it's only by doing this first thing, exposure therapy, that you will be able to benefit from this second thing, which I will get into very, very soon. But if you want some more tools to help you become a confident speaker, check out the link below. Put your email in and I will send across everything that you need to know so you don't feel silent inside when it's your time to speak, or you don't feel nervous when it's your time to speak, or you don't start getting sweats and your voice starts shaking when it's your time to speak. All I ask your email and I will send that over. And the whole reason that we do these exercises in the first place is to get cage time. Just when I was fighting, as an amateur, you want to get as much cage time as you possibly can. The more cage time you get, the more experience you get. When you get more experience, you start to become competent. When you start to become competent, you then start to become confident. So when you get this cage time when you're speaking, you will start to become competent. And then when you are competent, you will become confident. And that's what leads me into the second point. That is becoming competent in speaking. But you might ask, how the hell do we become competent in speaking? Well, I've created a system and you need to tune into your dials. Your dial stands for delivery, improvisation, auditory, language, and storytelling. They are the 5 pillars to improve in your communication. If you just go, oh, I want to improve my communication, that is like saying, oh, I want to get rich. It's too vague. You need to be clear and concise of what your problem is. What do you want to be confident in when you're speaking? Do you want to be confident going up on a stage and presenting to 20, 30, 40 people at work? Do you want to be confident in conversations with randomers on the street? Do you want to be confident that when someone speaks to you, you can listen and you can take out the main bits of what they're saying and then you can ask them more questions to build that deeper connection? You need to be clear and concise of what you want to be confident in, because then you can dip into these pillars. It's only when you are very picky on what you want to improve in and what you want to be confident in that you can go into these pillars, because if you don't, it's going to be very hard to do so. But I'm going to go through these pillars in a rough guide because they are a video in itself. Let's start with delivery. Delivery could go with pace, it could go with pause, volume, pitch, tonality, eye contact, body language, rate of speech, your presence. They're things that consist of your delivery. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Because there's a 7% interest of what you say, there's a 38% interest of how you say it, and there's a 55% interest on what you look like when you're saying it. If when you are talking to your friends, you're very energetic, but when you go on to present at work and you've got to sell them this idea, you've got no energy. Your problem isn't improvisation, your problem isn't auditory, it's not language, it's not storytelling, it's your delivery. It's how you are perceived, it's the energy that you bring. So that means your focus to become competent in, so you do become confident, is the delivery section. You need to work on your tonality drills, your pitch drills, your melody drills to bring more life into your speech when you're speaking, so people will engage on that deeper level. But if you're not confident in public situations, when someone asks you a question, you don't know how to frame an answer. You feel very misunderstood because what you are thinking is not coming out. The thoughts that are in your head aren't turning into words, they're not turning into clear sentences. Your problem is improvisation. The main key takeaway for improvisation is having frameworks. The best spontaneous speakers are the ones that have frameworks to speak, that they can just grab out and use that framework. And a great one that I like to use is the 3-2-1, especially in social settings. When you freeze and you are thinking of what to say, you are thinking of the wrong questions. You need to think according to these frameworks so you get specific answers and you can elaborate on the subject. Let's go with the 3-2-1. 3 is 3 steps, 2 types, 1 thing. That's it. 3 steps, 2 types, 1 thing. That's all you have to remember. That means if you're talking about Italy, for example, with a friend, you could go, oh, 3 steps to picking the best restaurant in Italy. Or it could be 2 types of thing I love to do in Italy. Or it could be 1 thing that I love to do on a night time in Italy. Just use that 3-2-1 framework when you're trying to connect and carry on the conversation. Because then not only do you carry on the conversation, you thread the conversation with what they're saying. Let's say they're talking about football. All right, 3 steps to picking a football team to support. Sweet. 2 types of football teams I hate. Sweet. 1 thing I love about football. Now, in your head, you've asked yourself questions, which is going to give yourself answers. So don't think of what to say. Use the framework to help guide you on what to say. Now, let's go on to the next one. I'm going to take this off. I'm absolutely boiling. But we have auditory. Auditory is all about listening. I've not dived too much into this section so far, this pillar. I will do soon, but I've not done yet. Main takeaway from this is being able to thread. You might think, oh, thread, what do you mean? Thread the conversation. You need to be able to listen to what they are saying and thread on their points. Don't ask a question, get the answer, ask a completely different question. Get the answer, ask a completely different question. You need to thread their answer into your next question. Because by doing this, your conversation will flow and they will also think that you are paying more attention to the conversation, which will build a connection. And that's in a social setting. Imagine at a work setting. A work setting, you're listening to what people are saying. You need to thread your questions depending on what they've said. So you can get the relevant answers to see if this would work for your business or this would work for your team at work. But auditory, it's all about threading. Next one is language. I don't have the biggest vocabulary. I wasn't academic at school whatsoever. But when you're speaking, less is more. If you can't explain a complicated subject in a simple manner, that's not effective communication. Effective communication is when everyone can understand. But sometimes you want to add a little bit more vivid images into your speaking. And you do that by adding more words. Okay, first one that you can do is upgrade your language. Using the task you've done already, using the first task, filming yourself, you can see what words that you commonly use. For me, it was so. And I have a post-it note up here for so. So you can find the words that you commonly use and find substitutes for those words. I'm going to give you some examples. So for so, I'd cause or effect, I could use therefore, thus, as a result, consequently. If I want to create emphasis, I could use very, extremely, incredibly, exceptionally. If I want to use it as a filler, I could go well, anyway, then, moving on, you see. So you see just used it then, for that word so, I've now got well over 10 phrases that I could use instead of so to create more variety in my speech. Because if you always use the same words, you're going to be repetitive. The best speakers vary up, just like they do in their delivery, but also their language. So that is one way that you can upgrade your language. See the common terms and words that you say and find other substitutions for those words. Next one. Now let's go through adding new language to your vocabulary. Instead of using vocabulary, we need to start using our lexicon. We have a deeper lexicon, we have a surface lexicon, and then you'll have words that you have never heard before. They're pretty plain and simple. If you've not heard it, you've not heard it. But you need to move that word into your deeper lexicon. Your deeper lexicon is words that you know, but you would never use whilst you're speaking because you can't grab that word out. It's not being used enough. It's not being drilled into your mind and mouth connection. And because of that, if you want to start using it in your speech, you have to move it into your surface lexicon. These are the words that you can use on a day-to-day basis. Just like I'm speaking now, every word that I'm saying is in my surface lexicon because I can just reach out and grab it. I don't really have to think too much about it. And what you need to do is get words from your deeper lexicon to your surface lexicon. Because then when you're speaking, you can transition between these different words and have that variety in your speech. But you may ask, how? How are you going to do this? How are you going to add new words that you'd never used before? Well, if you read and you don't know a word, write it down. If you listen to a podcast and you don't know the word, write it down. If you're listening to the radio and you don't know the word, write it down. But don't write it down in random places. You want a commonplace book. You can either have a physical book or a digital book. I started with a physical book, but I've moved on to a digital book because then when I'm on the go, I can just lob it straight in. I'm going to give you some examples that I've actually used myself. All right, I put vivid in my word bank. And that was in my deeper lexicon. I've heard the word before, but I would never use it in my speech. I've used vivid in this video. I know I have. So that is going into my surface lexicon. You need to make a conscious effort of using these words. So this is what I do. I find a word. I put it into my commonplace book. From that commonplace book, I try and use that word 2 or 3 times in the day. So if I've heard a word, I've wrote down the meaning, I've got some examples, I'm then going to try and use that word 3 times in that day to try and drill it in. And at the end of the week, I'm going to have a bunch of words that I'm going to continue to try and put into my speech. It's not good enough doing it once. Just like you wouldn't go to the gym, do 1 bicep curl and expect to have big biceps. You can't use a word once and expect it to go straight into your surface lexicon. But not only can you add some words, you can add creative speech, or you could get quotes or idioms, but these can go into your word bank as well. So in my digital commonplace book, my word bank, I have different sections. I've got words, I've got creative speech, I've got idioms, I've got quotes, I've got alliterations, and I've got similes and metaphors. So when I hear a good one, I put it in there because I might use that in my speech when it comes to it. And because I'm getting so much more language, that means when a situation arises and I need to grab a word out or a phrase out, boom, I'm expanding the surface lexicon, which allows me to reach out and grab those words. Creative speech, I'm going to give you some examples. This one here. Not because you use big words to impress, but because you connect and nothing less. Even the simplest things you say lands with power and won't fade away. Let me give you another one. Improving how you speak isn't some mystery trick. You just need a system that actually sticks. Because in the end, it's not what you know, it's how you say that makes you glow. And if you also want to glow, link below, check that out. I will send you tips and tools over 10 days to improve your confidence in speaking. Another one, cardboard confidence. Another one, tripping over my tongue. I use that one quite a lot now. Another one, go weave a better world with your words. I also use that one quite a lot. So when you hear phrases that you like and you think, that's a bit of me, lob it in the commonplace book and try and involve it into your speech. Now, that's enough for the language section. Let's now go on to the storytelling section. Let's say we're in conversations, someone's telling loads of stories and you feel like you have none. You feel like you don't really have much to say and you're struggling to think of ideas. Well, that is a storytelling problem, but it also is a little bit of improvisation problem. But we're going to focus on the storytelling here. It's all about creating a story bank. You might think you've got nothing to talk about. But a lot of things have happened in your life. A lot of events have happened in your life. A lot of laughter has happened in your life. The only thing is, you've not documented that. You have not put that down on paper. Just like we just talked about language, you have your deeper lexicon, you have your surface lexicon. We need to do this with our ideas for stories. We're going to do that by documenting. Number one, you are going to do a story diary every single day. You're going to pick one thing from your day that is a story-worthy moment. It might not be the best story, but just by doing this, it keeps you in good habits. Good habits of documenting the story. Because at the end of the week, you might have one killer story that could be great to use in conversations or great to use for a presentation at work or a speech on stage. I'm going to give you an example. We are on the 1st of September right now. So yesterday, my story on the 31st of August was I sat on the beach for 2 hours, didn't put any sun cream on, and I burnt on the beach. That's it. And then later down the line, I could find a foundational message and a true 5-second message about this story. But for now, it's just documenting what happened. What was the best thing or the most story-worthy moment of that day. And then once you've documented every single day, you can also do a story timeline. A story timeline will allow you to retrieve old memories that you didn't even know was there. It will allow you to get stories from 10 years ago, from 20 years ago, and pull them out and use them in conversations, use them in presentations. But you're only going to be able to do that by creating a story timeline. And I thought this was absolute bullshit. But in the last 5 months, I've documented most days of a story-worthy moment. And in those 5 months, I've had more stories come to my mind when I'm speaking than the last 10 years of my life. And for this reason, I made a story timeline. You can start it from when you want. I started it from 2016 and I went all the way up to 2025. If you want, you can start it from 2000, 1990, 1980, totally up to you. But for me, that's when I left school and that's when the story-worthy moments really started happening in my life. I moved to Thailand, I moved to America, I fought in Australia, I went full-time with fighting. That's when I started mine. I had 2016, I had 2025. Then down the side, I did January, February, March, April, May, June, and so forth. Then I just put in key moments that happened in my life. I also went on my phone, looked at photos, and went through my whole camera roll to create a story timeline. And when you start creating a story timeline, you'll be in the shower, you'll be walking down the street, you'll be biking to the gym, and a story will pop out your head and you'll think, that is a great bloody story. Other day, I said this in my last YouTube, other day I'm biking down a story about Nai, my trainer in Thailand, how he goes, Staff, you lose this fight, I'm not your trainer no more. Just before I'm getting in the ring, just to make me any more nervous. And that would have never come up if I didn't make a story timeline. So if you're struggling to think of what to say and you think that you don't have any stories to contribute to the conversation, then you're wrong. Just start documenting your stories. But that is the dials that you need to tune into to improve your communication. It's only by being specific in what you want to become competent in, to allow you to become confident in, that you will actually become confident. And if you're really wanting to improve your delivery and get more energy when you're speaking to randomers in public, they're the aspects you need to work on: delivery and improvisation. So that means if you're working on expanding your vocabulary and your lexicon, expanding your surface lexicon, if you work on that, it doesn't matter how much work you do, you're not going to feel confident. Because you're not working on the things that you truly want to get confident in. You're working on the wrong aspects of communication. And that's why it's so important to work on this dial system. But whilst you're working on this dial system, make sure you're exposing yourself to communication, whether that is a community group through Toastmasters, whether that is filming yourself on voice record and then on camera after, or whether that is just going to speak to randomers and have more conversations with people in public, which I didn't mention, but it's quite self-explanatory. That is what you need to do to become confident in speaking and become a confident communicator. Get some sort of exposure, pick the pillar of dials that you need to work on. And if you want to become more competent and confident in your communication and want some more guidance so you don't feel silent inside and you always have something to say and you don't freeze on the spot, check out the link below. I will send you over the tools to make sure that never, ever happens to you again. And also, YouTube is a very, very smart bugger. Actually, we've done a video on language. I always use the word smart bugger. So we're going to use something else. Instead of smart bugger, I'm just going to go smart individual. I'm going to change up the variety a bit. Pick something out the lexicon. We'll go that. All right, reset. We're going to keep this in the edit. And if you like this video, you will probably like this video too, because YouTube is a very smart individual. Therefore, you probably should watch this.